Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Brenna of Brenna's Here, and I'm a human design reader and mentor of 9 years and also practicing astrologer that is teaching you how to understand the overlap between astrology and human design to make it make more sense for you. And of course, the practical implication of all of this good, juicy information. So today we're going to go into a deep dive on gate 8, which is the current gate transit that we're going through at this time. Gate 8 happens between about May 15th and May 20th to 21st every year. So we're all experiencing this transit. However, you may always have it consistently in your human design body graph. You want to look at this little section here. It's called the G center and the throat center to see if you have any activation in that area. It will be highlighted, aka circled, in case you do. So without further ado, let's get into the meaning of gate 8 and all the 6 profile lines that flavor the energy of this week and your human design body graph. So gate 8 is known as the gate of contribution, and this means that you are somebody who is experiencing this energy during this week or just in general that always wants to contribute something more using your voice. You're always somebody who really wants to be of service to your people and is always asking, is there anything that I can do? How can I be of service? What can I contribute? What's going to be a helpful, juicy tip or piece of information that I can share to my people? And because of this, you really like to be really involved in whatever it is that you're doing. You just want to make sure that because this is Taurus energy, you're not acting like a bull in a china shop and entering into an experience or to a connection with somebody too fast, too soon, and doing too much. This is really where looking at your strategy in human design comes into play and what your energy type is. If you don't know what that is, you want to look at a free copy of your human design body graph. There's a link to one in the show notes below. Now, you are somebody that's also really powerful because this gate sits in what's called the channel of inspiration. You are somebody that's inherently inspirational. I also have a link to that video if you have the full channel to go deeper on that. But really, you are here to lead by example. So you love to be a doer, to get things done. You are here to work after all. You just want to make sure that you're doing it first. You're not preemptively putting your hands in something that somebody else is kind of already in the middle of doing, unless they've specifically invited you or asked you to do so, or you just want to start to take action. So an example of this would be, say you want to do a podcast and you have this channel and you feel like you have to wait or do a lot of research to find other people who have podcasts that want to co-host one with you. A good exaltation or the proper use of this placement is to start the podcast no matter what, using the tools that you have so that you make sure that you can get your energy out there most effectively and the best way possible, and then it's undiluted with other people's opinions and ideas, because ultimately you have something already to contribute. Don't let your own fears of whatever it is that are coming up hold you back from sharing your voice, because naturally you are an interesting person that is going to inspire other people. So don't doubt yourself in that way. It's really important also for you to value your time, energy, and money. Because this gate placement is Taurus ruled, you want to make sure that you're really paying attention to how much of your voice, your energy, throat chakra, adrenals, energy that you're spending on people who aren't really valuing your time. Again, Venus is the planet of values that rules Taurus. So how are we valuing our time, our money, our resources energetically and literally? What's also really interesting about this gate placement is that it starts at 24 degrees of Taurus and actually ends at 0 degrees, but 7 minutes of Gemini. So if you are right at 0 degree Gemini placement too, you will notice that you also may have this placement. And it depends on human design. We also use what's called your design date. So 88 days before the day that you were born, roughly, give or take a day or two for some people. That's where you'll see the design date on your human design body graph. And that means when the soul kind of chose its purpose or implanted itself in the body, when you were like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is the energy that I'm designed to carry out. And some of the lessons of your subconscious and how that's going to teach you how to navigate life more effectively, what you came here to evolve to do. If you incarnated in this lifetime on this earth, there was some lesson or lessons that you have to figure out, right? So gate 8 could also be on that side. You may not see an exact overlap in your natal chart. You are also somebody that's incredibly loyal and really respectful. And so making sure that you engage with people who also have that same level of loyalty and respect is really important. Now, of course, in life, there's always people that we're going to run up against that are in our lives for a reason, a season, or a lesson. And so paying attention to the people that you know you can compartmentalize, maybe they only have access to a certain level of loyalty. For example, every client doesn't have to be your BFF and have your phone number, right? It's like having that good natural give and take. I know that relationships and loyalty come across a spectrum, right? But respect always being like the first and foremost thing that you want to kind of present yourself, as that being one of your guiding values. Respect is really important for you to receive and also for you to give, because ultimately you do lead by example. Now, without further ado, let's get into the more specifics of this gate placement. You're going to see that there's a decimal point after gate 8 in numbers 1 through 6. We have a transit through about one of each of those lines every single day over the course of 6 days. There's 64 gates in human design, 64 weeks of the year versus our traditional 52. So this is where we kind of look at what the flavor of each of the days are and then how you have this specifically in your human design body graph. If you have gate 8 in the first line, this is known as the line of honesty. And this is a good foundational understanding for this gate in general, because in its exalted placement, it's knowing that everything that you know and want to share from a creative point of view has benefit to the greater good of our communities and society at large. It's not holding on to your creative self-expression and being super selfish or fearful about other people stealing your ideas, but rather knowing that for every idea you share, 3 more come in its place. Now, in its detrimented aspect, this is wanting to share so much, always wanting to have something to contribute, and always wanting to impact people in a beneficial way, that you actually give away a lot of your individuality because you're too hyper-focused on catering to other people, their wants, their desires, and how you just want so desperately to be the person that can provide a solution for them, which ultimately kind of puts a bad taste in their mouth and doesn't put you in the position that you're meant to be in, which is that of the creative role model. Gate 8 in the second line in its exalted placement, and for both lines, it's known as the line of service. And its exalted placement, it's giving unselfishly and really figuring out what is a good way for you to show up and again, be of service to people and leading by example, knowing you're here to be of service in some way, shape, or form. Now, if it's in its detrimented aspect, this is where you're going to be looking at giving something, but only for a like hardcore like service exchange, or like there's already has to be kind of a reward or a precedent set for what you're going to get from the outcome of being of service to people, instead of knowing that being inherently of service in a good beneficial way is what begets the rewards, rather than having to nitpick and really strong arm a reward preemptively before you decide on providing a service. And what I want to clarify with this too is that this doesn't mean that you have to give all of your work away for free. This is not what we're talking about for this placement, but to know that in certain places and spaces, like for myself, for example, there's things that I share on YouTube Live that are like I'm not gatekeeping every aspect of human design or all of the elements that I've learned in my 9.5 years of experience as a reader. There are some things that I share in that way that's unselfish, that's just kind of being a channel for the information to help other people. That's the way that people access that part of the service for me. But there are other services in my business where I'm not going to sit in an individual reading with one-on-one with somebody or do my 8-week mentorship program and have that be entirely free. Gate 8 in the third line is known as the line of the phony. And this isn't as bad as it sounds, where in its exalted placement, or where we're trying to enact on this placement in the best way, is to know that there's a time and a place to have a certain amount of decorum and or aesthetics that are appropriate for a certain scenario to portray a specific outcome. So for example, let's say that you are at an event and you want to be able to provide a really great service for people where you're highlighting your business, and maybe you're a new event coordinator, and so you rent a bunch of really nice china from Baccarat. And that could be because you're trying to attract a high-end clientele, but maybe you haven't even turned a profit yet and your business hasn't been doing so great, but it's like doing things for the sake of where you know that you're going, where you know you're destined for. In the meantime, to have a certain level of phoniness where it manifests your future reality in the present moment by bringing that reality of the future into the present moment. In its detrimented aspect, this is where there's an over-reliance on being phony and thinking that being phony and lying and playing in people's faces isn't going to catch up to you. So it's that thin line of knowing how working with that phoniness, that manifestation, kind of more of a fake it till you make it type attitude is beneficial, but too far in the wrong direction, and you can put your foot in your mouth because people will ultimately detect that you don't know or have as much as you say that you do. Gate 8 in the fourth line is one of my favorites because it's known as the line of respect. And so in its exalted placement, these are people who really acknowledge the individual gifts of people that are a part of the team. And its detrimented aspect, it's not giving people their proper flowers when their flowers are due, when that recognition and respect is due, just because you assume that they may not be the most, the MVP, the most valuable player on the team, so to speak. The example that's given in a lot of human design teachings is that the coach of the team may not always be appreciated as the driving factor between how all the individual players play, because they're not exactly on the field when it comes to showtime, when the lights are on in the stadium, when you're zooming in on cameras. They're not the ones that always fully get their flowers, right? So in its exalted state, the way that I'll also explain the good use of this placement, and again, when we're at about like May 20th, or May like 18th even, during the week of the year, the day of the year that we experience this. It's making sure that, like, if you're in a group and say there's somebody that has a really good joke, but they weren't, they weren't loud enough for the group to be able to hear their joke. Instead of repeating that joke a little bit louder and taking it as your own, you start laughing and can share the joke that so and so just said with a group of people, making sure that they get the recognition and the respect that they deserve. And a lot of people can get a little bit, especially with the transits right now, bent out of shape. We have a full moon in Scorpio that happens every Taurus season. Full moon's always going to be in Scorpio during Taurus season, which is May. And so a lot of people that are afraid that if they share or highlight or give other people their flowers, that means that they go without, because that's a way that they kind of ride on people's coattails, but the opposite side of the coin, where it's like, well, I can get recognized by this person, but the second that this person doesn't recognize me, I'm going to slander them behind closed doors, or I'm going to make sure that I don't promote them, whatever it is. So there's a tendency right now in society in general, because of a lot of the astrological shifts, but this month specifically, where a lot of that has been going on. And even with this transit, we're going to notice it even more so around this week. Gate 8 in the 5th line is known as the line of Dharma, which I really love as well. And in its exalted placement, or some of the flavors of Gate 8 in the 5th line, is that these are people who are like teacher archetypes that know that their student is going to be gone out of their classroom at the end of the semester or the end of the school year. They know that it's a part of the process to be able to let go, to let their students fly on to the next grade level, to progress, to move on. And that's just a part of life. In its detrimented aspect, it's a little more literal and obvious here, where we see that it's a student that a teacher, would want to hold back just because they really like that student and don't want to let them go, right? Obviously, we hope that really doesn't happen in real life, or somebody that's afraid to be an empty nester. So they have a lot of very codependent relationship with their child. A lot of codependent relationships can happen if this gate placement isn't used properly. Last but not least, gate 8 in the 6th line is known as the line of communion. And in its exalted state, this is the gift of knowing how to communicate and contribute to a community at the right proper time, in the right proper way, shape, or form. In its detrimented state, this is where we see a little bit more so of people who don't really have a good sense of timing. And this doesn't mean that people, or on this day, that you won't be able to have a good sense of time. It's just kind of knowing that that's the predisposition. So how do you focus on really learning communication skills? All of us were born here with a path and a purpose and and skills that we were meant to learn. So there's nothing that you can't learn, even if you're predisposed to something that's a perceivable negative in our society, because it's not the way that you have to function in order to thrive down the path that you want to go down. So for example, let's say you wanted to be the first female to sell Aston Martins in the state of wherever you live, and no one in your family has ever done sales before, and you don't know anyone who does anything with sales or knows anything about cars besides you. This is where you want to make sure that you can just learn that skill, teach yourself that skill. Everything is figure outable, to quote Marie Forleo. Everything is learnable. You can teach and learn anything, and just knowing that you have the self-confidence to do so is more than half the battle to get you to your goals and destinations to achieve the life of your dreams. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so that other people can get the good, juicy information of human design. It is my joy and my purpose to really share all of this in a palatable way, professional way, helping your platonic relationships, again, helping you to achieve a life that you deserve to live, because those desires are on your heart for a reason. If you have any comments, questions, curiosities about anything when it comes to human design or astrology and want to leave them in the comments below, please feel free to do so. And I will see you next week for the energy update of the week.